Iowa Fireworks Farm is Iowa's largest fireworks store. 6,000 square feet of hand-picked fireworks, over 50 brands and 1,300 different products to choose from. But they're also family-owned and operated. Iowa Fireworks Farm is the one stop you need to make before July 4th. You'll find them just south of the Metro. Take I-35 to exit 43 at New Virginia. Head east and look for the Big Red Barn. At Iowa Fireworks Farm, the toughest part will be deciding what not to buy.
Don't miss the biggest show of the summer, Kings of the West, starring Bone Thugs and Harmony, E40, Too Short, Mac 10, The Dog Pound, DJ Quick, Sugar Free, and Khadijah, live July 11th at Wells Fargo Arena. Don't miss Kings of the West with Bone Thugs and Harmony, E40, Too Short, DJ Quick, Mac 10, The Dog Pound, Sugar Free, and Khadijah. Get tickets now at HighVTix.com.
What's up? Welcome to Bigger Than 12 on Iowa Everywhere. I'm Jake Brend with Cyclone Fanatic and Iowa Everywhere, joined by Derek Duke, Heartland College Sports and Iowa Everywhere. Derek, how's it going?
Doing great. Had another busy weekend. Went to a concert again on Friday.
How many weekends in a row have you been to a concert?
Just two. I got to see one of my favorites, Jason
Brooks and Dunn was like 3 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, feels like it. But went to see Jason Bowl and the Stragglers, who is like one of the best classic red dirt bands out there. So I've never seen him before in person. I got a chance to see him at a Watermelon Jubilee, of all things, a nice little festival.
What exactly is that?
I don't know. Just like it's a watermelon fest, I guess you would say. Beer, watermelon.
Everyone just brings watermelon?
No, they have watermelon there. They grow watermelons down here. Down in good old Stockdale, Texas. But had a good time there. Had a very late night.
We grow corn here. We don't have corn jubilee.
You should.
Sounds awesome.
It was pretty good. $5 beers, although the beer selection left a lot to be desired. But then Saturday, I went back home to Shiner. Went to the brewery. Had a few beers there. Uncle drove us around in golf carts to go to another bar. So we went to the gas station to drink beer. And so, yeah, very busy weekend, but a very good one for me. And it was fun. I needed a good weekend like that.
Huh. Sounds fun.
It was a blast.
I just can't believe you're complaining about $5 beer. I don't care what they serve me if it's $5 at a festival.
Okay. If you would have saw the selection, I should have posted online, but I didn't. The selection was very. I mean, I can just probably say it. It was just nothing but Modelo products. That's it.
Yum.
Which I'm okay with, like one or two of them, but after a while.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Enough about beer. As Derek takes a sip of beer, we are brought to you by WealthCharter Retirement Planning and Tax. Tim Hawkins and his team would, if they looked at Derek's budget, be like, all right, man, maybe a little less money on beer. Don't cut it out completely, but maybe, no, I'm kidding. Yeah. Tim Hawkins and his team at WealthCharter, they work really hard at simplifying wealth all in one spot between retirement planning and tax planning. They're the best, and they support us. You can do your part in supporting them at wealthcharterretirement.com or go stop by their office in Ankeny. We got a good show in store for you today on Bigger Than 12. We're going to continue with our season outlooks in alphabetical order. We got Baylor and BYU for you today. Athlon released their preseason top 25. We'll have some quick hitters on that. And then we'll close with the best Big 12 quarterbacks since 2010. We're going to draft them. And I cannot wait for that. I cannot wait for that. Do you know who qualifies?
Yeah, anybody that played in 2010 or later.
No, I'm saying like a specific name that would shock people.
Just a random one?
Brandon Whedon. The fact that Brandon Whedon was 15 years ago, that's crazy to me.
Oh, I mean,
he's got to be 50 now, right? Wasn't he like 33 his senior year at Oklahoma State?
Well, he's a different. That's a totally different situation there. He was like the only one that was an old man by the time he got to college.
I know. Wasn't he in the military?
No, he played professional baseball. He played for the Yankees.
Oh, that's right. Who am I thinking? Wasn't there a quarterback who was in the military and started their career at like 28 or something? I don't know what I'm thinking.
I don't know what you're thinking.
What is that? What is that first picture of Brandon Whedon?
That's when he was on the Browns.
No,
I
like
would make that face too there.
Yeah, why is he making that face?
Because he was playing for the Browns.
He looks like a Muppet.
He was playing for the Browns. I would be pissed off too if I had to play for that organization.
He doesn't look mad. He almost looks scared.
No, he looks like, oh shit, what did I get myself into? Maybe I should have stuck with baseball.
41 years old.
Sounds about right.
I don't think he retired because of age. I think he got pushed out of the league. But we'll get into that in a bit. Let's start with Baylor. Who's gone? Who's back? Who do they bring in? So on offense, they return definitely their most important player, and that's Sawyer Robertson. I'll get to the returners. What they lost is 4 of their top 5 receivers, most likely. Ashton Hawkins, he was a part of the JUCO players that were granted an extra year, but that extra year specifically for him was revoked by the NCAA last month, so Baylor is still working to get him back. Along with that, they lost Monterey Baldwin, Hal Presley, and Ketron Jackson Jr. The good news is that's pretty much all they lost on offense. Robertson, the QB back, Bryson Washington, he had the best season by a freshman running back in Baylor history. He's back, as well as Josh Cameron, 10 touchdowns, 750 yards in 2024, and their second leading rusher, Dawson Pendergrass, to go with 4 of 5 offensive linemen. They also bring in 3 different receivers. Kobe Prentice from Alabama, almost 800 yards in 3 years. Cole Wilson from Texas State. He had over 600 last year. And same with Lewis Brown from San Diego State. So their offense it was already really good. It was already one of the best, if not the best offenses in the Big 12 the second half of last season. I don't think there's many questions with them. On defense, their star linebacker Keaton Thomas returns, but then they lost a little bit, and they're trying to plug in some holes on a defense that wasn't great. They bring in Power 5 transfers at all 3 levels with 2 defensive backs, one from Ohio State, one from Northwestern, an edge rusher from Oregon, and a linebacker who was an All-Conference USA performer from FIU. Where do you want to start? Defense or offense? Where's your biggest question?
Well, defense would be my biggest question. I don't know if you want to talk about the positives first with the offense.
Okay, well, we'll start with the positives. So,
yeah,
I don't think it's a matter of will their offense be good, but do they have what it takes to maybe be the best offense in the Big 12?
I think they're up there. You know, Sawyer Robertson is arguably the best or maybe the most underrated quarterback in the Big 12. Like, if you look back at last season, like the guy didn't even start the first 2 games of the season, and he still threw for 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 8 interceptions.
Yep.
He was one of the best quarterbacks in the conference last season, and maybe at one point, maybe you could make an argument for the best with the way their offense was humming. Bryson Washington, that freshman running back, he was fantastic, probably the best freshman probably in the Big 12 when it comes to that position. Josh Cameron comes back, who was pretty steady for them last year. And then you mentioned you have 4 starters return up front. And I don't know how many people were paying attention to this, but I thought Baylor at one time last season probably had the best offensive line play, especially later in the year. Like, they were just running the football down people's throats. So I'm really excited to see what this offense can do. They did bring in some more wide receiver help, which I think was the missing piece to this offense a year ago. So I really think that the sky's the limit for this offense here in 2025.
Yeah, they're going to be really good. And it's crazy to look back that Robertson didn't start last year. And we really didn't know who he was. Like when they played that game in Ames and went up, I think 14-3 early, it looked really good. And their offense did look good that day. But we just didn't know much about this Cameron guy. Not Cameron. Well, we didn't know much about Cameron either, but we definitely didn't know much about Sawyer Robertson. And then week by week, he built up that resume to where you can't argue that he's any worse than a top 5 quarterback in the league. And to have all of those weapons and that offensive line back, they've got what it takes to be the best offense in the league. And it might need to be, because with what we've seen from their defense the last 2 years, I know Dave Aranda is a defensive-oriented coach. I just don't trust the history that Baylor has with defenses that they're going to make a jump into the top 5 to top 8 defenses in the conference. And if they want to be Big 12 title contenders, I do think their offense is going to need to be one of the best or top 3 in the conference.
Yeah, it's going to come down to defense. Like, Aranda did take over the play calling last year, but as you can see, it didn't really fix a lot, especially with their personnel. Now, they're going to have a bunch of new faces again this year, especially in that front 7 if you look at their projected depth chart. But their secondary, I think, is going to be a lot better than what it was last year. This is a team, like, they don't have to play like 85 Bears defense. They just have to be good enough, maybe even average defense could probably get this team as a top tier one in the Big 12. So again, they don't have to be world beaters in this conference, but I think if they just play average to above average defense, that they're going to be just fine in the Big 12.
Well, and I don't want to play into the narrative that the Big 12 doesn't play defense, because that's just not true. But there's a lot of really good offenses in the league.
Yeah.
And
good quarterbacks.
And because of that, because of a lot of good offenses, and because of the elite quarterback play, I just don't think you're going to see that many elite defenses stand out. There might be a Utah. I know Iowa State has done it in the past. They struggled last year. But I just don't think you're going to have a lot of these 17-13 games, and that's where what you're saying, just be average. Can Baylor hold their opponents to 27 points a game? Because the difference between that and 35 points a game, with the schedule that they have, they could very well be representing the Big 12 in Dallas, because they get their 2 toughest games on the schedule at home. They play K-State and Arizona State in Waco. Their road games are really winnable with Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, Arizona, and then a massive game against TCU. Like, if they can defend their home turf and take care of business over the teams that they should on the road, I do really like where Baylor's heading into this year.
Yeah, the back half of their schedule is very friendly, and I like that a lot for a team that's looking to compete. Especially that's where you can build that momentum, and hopefully maybe if you find yourself in Arlington, you're going to be playing really good ball. So I really like the way their schedule lays out as well.
So this begs the question before we get into... I guess let's just do it right now. What's the line of a success and a disappointment? And after that, I've got another question.
Well, I feel like the success for this Baylor team, like for this season, is a hell of a lot different than what it was a year ago. Like last season, we didn't think they would even make a bowl game. They ended up going, 6-3 in Big 12 play. Like a good season for Baylor probably would be 10 wins or somehow finding their way into Arlington like they did in 2021. But if you look at this team offensively, they have the weapons and pieces to compete at the top of the Big 12. So for me, that would be a big success for them.
I agree that, 9-10 wins, be in the hunt for a conference title game appearance. I'm more interested in maybe not what's a disappointment, but what gets Dave Aranda fired, because he saved his job last year.
Yep.
Did a really good coaching job, but he is not that far removed from the hottest seat in the conference at all. Is with what they have on offense, does a 7-5 season with that schedule, does that get him canned?
I don't know if it's enough for him to get canned. I think 7-5 would be a disappointing year. Baylor can't go like into year 6 of the Dave Aranda era and be happy with like barely making a bowl game. Like, this is the year where Baylor can take that next step and get back to what they thought we could have been after that title reign they had, 4 years ago now. So I think for Dave to get fired, he would have to go like 5-7 or 6-6 or something like that, to where Baylor can now justify that firing. But I don't see that happening this year. The good news, like, I actually have faith in this team. So, I mean, call me crazy. Like, I think this Baylor team right now could end up being the best, like, dark horse pick to maybe win the Big 12 this year.
See, that's why I do think that there's a chance that like 7-5 could get him fired, because I do think that highly of their offense, and I don't think that much of their schedule. So if they waste that offense, and we already know how hot Aranda's seat was going into last season and even in the middle of last season, I don't think it's going to take much to push him back there. And I don't think that happens, for the record. I don't think they'll go 7-5, but if they do, it would not shock me that if a disappointing year was his final year.
Yeah, I think 6-6 would probably be that firing line right there.
Yeah. Well, we'll just have to see. I hope not, because I feel like Dave Aranda's always been a good talking point on our show.
Both good and bad. Good and bad.
All right, let's move to BYU. They were tied for first place in the Big 12 before the championship last year, and because of tiebreakers, did not get to make the trip to Arlington. BYU, they also bring back quite a bit. They do lose two of their top four receivers in Darius Lassiter and Keelan Marion, but they bring back Jake Retzlaff, who really impressed in his second year in a BYU uniform. If we did our QB rankings at the start of last year, we might have had him last or really close to last, because he was just not on our radar, and he did not look great in a few opportunities in 2023. His status is a little bit up in the air with the sexual assault lawsuit that was filed against him in May. All alleged, of course, but it doesn't sound like it'll affect his season, but we're not experts on that, and we don't need to go into that. Along with Retzlaff, they bring back Chase Roberts, their leading receiver, LJ Martin, their leading rusher, and then two other pretty key receivers that are young and up-and-comers, and JoJo Phillips, who had 21 yards per catch as a freshman, and Parker Kingston, he had the iconic punt return against K-State. They also bring in Carson Ryan, a tight end from Utah, and two Power 5 offensive linemen, and Andrew Gentry from Michigan, and Colorado's Isaiah Jada. No shortage of options on that offense. That is a very, very deep offense.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they're going to have to need this season if they want to get to that next level as a program. Like, you know, we kind of hit on this a couple weeks ago when we were talking about overrated and underrated teams, but again, a lot of that's going to depend on the status of Jake Retzlaff. Like, we still don't know what's going on, so, you know, we already know the story and all that stuff, but if he's going to be able to play this season, he does have to improve as a passer. Like,
yeah,
if you look at his stats last season, 20 touchdown passes, 12 picks, and completed, 57% of his passes?
Yep.
Like, he's got to take that next step as a quarterback in this offense. Like, BYU has been a team that has, you know, leaned on running the football and playing great defense. And as good as those things are, it can only take you so far in the Big 12.
Yeah, we'll come back to the offense. Their defense, their entire starting defensive line graduated.
And it was a good one.
It was a really good one. One of the best in the conference. They do bring in 5 transfers, including one from their arch rival, Utah, Keanu Tanavaso. Both stud linebackers return, and Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker. That's good news, but their 2 starting cornerbacks also graduated. So a lot of holes to fill. They hit the portal hard. We saw today with the commitment of the 5-star quarterback that they definitely don't have a shortage of resources, but it's fair to have a lot of questions about their defense. I know you can look at the NIL dollars that they're spending on certain positions, but we won't really see it until it's on the field. I think their question, of course, it lies on the defensive end, and it's just, will their defensive line even be in the stratosphere of last year? I don't think it's fair to expect it to be as good, but they can't really go from one of the best in run coverage to middle of the pack.
Yeah, I mean, that's a defense that was first in total yards, points allowed, and they were at pretty much the top of every major category on defense. Like, they're going to be pretty good again, but to replace pretty much your entire front seven and your entire defensive line, like, I don't see there's any way how they aren't taking a step back in some capacity here. So, and that also, I could think it translate to the offensive line too, because they're going to have a lot of new faces on the offensive line as well. So I think on both sides of the ball up front is really where I have some question marks for BYU.
My biggest question mark for them is how much of their close game Cinderella success repeat. And I know you could really do this for almost every single football program in the country outside of the top 7 or 8. It requires the ball to bounce your way, and turnover luck is often luck. There's typically not a lot of correlation to turnovers outside of a few programs in America. And I'm just concerned that while I do like their roster, and I like what they have coming back, and I like their roster last year, I'm concerned that they might not be able to recreate that magic and recreate those, not fluke wins, but those really impressive close game wins. I don't know if they'll be able to repeat that 2 years in a row.
Yeah, and plus the other thing is they're not going to sneak up on anyone this year. Like
Exactly.
Arizona State, they're not going to sneak up on anyone. They're not like, oh, it's BYU. How good are they? Like everyone knew how good they were, really, especially on defense last season. So I just don't see them, like, they're not a team that's going to sneak up on you this year.
Yeah, it's hard to call their win against K-State last year a fluke because the score was 38-9. But the way in which it happened it'll
Crazy.
just never play out like that if they play that game 1,000 times.
No.
The Utah game, they should have lost, and they didn't. The Oklahoma State game, they dang near lost at home.
Yeah.
But they did have a couple one-score losses at home, too. So the point I'm getting at is if the Big 12 has as much parity as I think it will, and I think the teams 1 through 9 will be pretty dang close, certainly closer than any other conference 1 through 9. And BYU will be right in that mix. And if Retzloff doesn't improve his accuracy, if their defensive line takes a decent step back, maybe their offensive line isn't as good, maybe their younger receivers don't take a step up as much, I could see BYU falling back into that 7 to 9 range in the conference. And we're not making our season predictions yet, but I think right now I'm leaning towards maybe picking BYU lower than most people will.
I can agree with that. I'm probably in that same camp. Like, I don't think they're going to improve where they were last season. I think last season in itself was very special, very unique, as you mentioned, especially with certain games that they played in. But again, I do have question marks just about the players on the field too. Like, so when I have that, and then I think about what they were able to accomplish last season, maybe a little luck, whatever it may be, I think it's going to return to kind of the average of what we probably thought they were going to be last season. Maybe not as worse, but yeah, I'm probably with you. I don't think I would put BYU in my top 3 or 4 this year.
What you can't account for is their atmosphere, and
It's true.
they have one of the three best atmospheres in the conference. So that certainly helps them, especially when they're playing all these super late night games. They definitely have an added home field advantage. What would you put the line of their success and disappointment at?
I think, of course, it's going to depend on the status of Retzloff, but I say with him, I think 9 wins would be a huge success. I think 7 would probably be a disappointment. Like, without him, getting to 7 wins would probably be pretty good, but missing out on a bowl game without Jake would probably be pretty bad. And who knows? Again, we don't know the situation, but I would say, as it stands, if Jake Retzloff's playing, I think 9 wins is a pretty good season. And if he's playing, probably a bad season, I would say it would be 6 to 7 wins for BYU. But And let me say this, I'd probably lean closer to 7 or 8 if I had to say right now this far out, but I don't see them getting to 9 or 10 wins this year.
I'm with you. I think 9 wins is a success. 6 would be a disappointment. The good news is their schedule. I would be a little shocked if they don't start 5-0 or 5-1. But then their back half of the schedule. Listen to this: Utah at home, at Iowa State, at Texas Tech, TCU at home, at Cincinnati. I don't think Cincinnati's going to be great, but it's a road game in college football. Like that's a real tough 5-game stretch. They could easily go 2-3, 1-4 in that stretch, and then they're right where we're talking about in that 7-5, 8-4 range.
Well, by the time they get to Cincinnati, Scott Satterfield may not have a job.
Yeah, that's true. Or maybe he just proves you wrong.
Yeah, maybe. Well, they better hope that Retzloff doesn't trade his jersey for an orange jumpsuit, but we'll see what happens, I guess.
I guess, I think we'll hit on Cincinnati next week. Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're, going
out. You know your
alphabetical.
ABCs. Yeah. We know our ABCs, we'll know.
All right, well, that does it for this week's season outlook. We'll get into this Athlon Top 25 first. Thanks to Freedom Tire. It is so hot and muggy in Iowa right now. Eventually, the roads are going to start cracking. There's going to be potholes everywhere. Of course, do your best to avoid the potholes, but when you inevitably hit one, hopefully you don't get a flat tire. But if you do get a flat tire, Freedom Tire is your place to go. Locations all around the metro and Ames. Also one in Altoona, Urbandale, Des Moines, West Des Moines. Quentin Crowner and his team. Great supporters of what we do here at Iowa Everywhere. Go take your car in there if you need new tires or if you just need a routine car checkup. Thanks to Freedom Tire for supporting what we do here at Iowa Everywhere. Let's head into this Athlon Top 25. I got to pull it up myself, but they come out with their ranking, and not sure you'd be shocked to see no Big 12 teams in the top. Is it top
12?
Top 12. Yep. So then K-State 13, Arizona State 14. And then you got to go all the way down to 22 before you find Texas Tech and Iowa State back to back. So 4 teams in the top 25. What are your initial thoughts when you see that list?
Probably from a Big 12 standpoint, I was a little surprised maybe to not see a team like BYU, because I think outside of us two, I think a lot of people view BYU as a serious contender, but who knows? Maybe the Jake Retzloff situation helped kind of factor into that. A little surprised Baylor. I think Athlon picked Baylor and BYU to finish like 5 and 6 in the conference. So to see them maybe not in the top 25 was a little bit surprising. But I'll say overall, like, I don't have a huge problem with it. Obviously they favor K-State over Arizona State, even though it's just one spot. So you could probably flip those teams. But it's clear that they have a top 2 in the Big 12, which are Kansas State and Arizona State. And no Utah. Seems like a lot of people are hopping on the Utah train, and Utah nowhere to be found here either.
Yeah, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't have their 1 through 16. But I think if I had to rank my top 4 right now, and I will fill out a preseason poll when I go to Big 12 Media Days in a couple weeks, I think I would have the top 4 what it is right now. I think I've been leaning K-State to win the league this year. And then Arizona State, Tech, Iowa State, I can't really disagree with that 1 through 4.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised to not see Baylor. I think Baylor, if not preseason or week 1, I think they'll definitely be a top 25 team after long, especially with how their season starts, if they can get a win over Auburn to start the year. But at this point, I don't really waste any energy seeing what other people or what sites rank the Big 12, because it's always just going to be SEC heavy at the top, and I've just grown to accept that and not really waste any brain cells on it.
Well, you see who they put at 1.
Texas, yeah.
Texas, number 1. Is that going to last? How long is that going to last?
I mean, pretty much any year you can put Texas at 1 based off of roster, but
no.
I still just need to see it before I completely believe it. And I think Arch Manning will be really good, but I also thought Quinn Ewers would be really good and never quite reached his potential at Texas. So I think the general rule of thumb would just be put Georgia at 1, but I'm not going to act like an SEC football expert at this time of year. I'll get into it eventually, but right now I'm all focused on the Big 12.
No, they did take up the SEC, I think, took up half the spots of the top 12. They had 6 of 12. I went back and looked. They had 6 of the top 12. The one thing I will say, I don't know if you noticed that the Big 12 actually had more preseason top 25 teams than the ACC did. The ACC actually only had
Clemson
3.
at 5, Miami at 9,
And then SMU at the
24th. Wow.
So yeah, the Big 12
Good
actually
catch.
finished with more teams inside the top 25 than the ACC did. So even the Big 10, I think the Big 10, I had 6 teams in the top 25, which, is the Big 10 deep enough for 6 teams in the top 25? I don't know about that, but I guess we'll see. So I'm not actually too mad at their top 25 that they released. Athlon does a pretty good job, I feel like.
And they don't really have a reason to be like super pro one conference or super anti-conference like that.
No.
I feel like there's not much of an agenda against Athlon. I think
Not like the
I think they're
ESPN,
typically pretty
FPI.
good. Yeah.
It's not like the FPI at ESPN, which has every SEC team ahead of every Big 12 team.
Yeah. Got 16 of the top 18 spots probably.
It's genius. You make your own formula so you can just, say, hey, well, look at this FPI. Look what we're doing. Look at this. Look at this stat that we created. So, it's all bullshit.
It'd be like just throwing a random beer company or like a random... It's like McDonald's making a formula for the best fast food and everything just favors them.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's writing your own book and using that book as the know-all, be-all. It's crap.
All right. I think we got an Iowa trivia question. Come on in, Aiden.
We're going back to how to pronounce the city. The age-old game.
That was my idea, by the way.
The age-old game that we all had equal parts in coming up with. All right.
This is going to be awesome. No shot you get this right.
Oh, I'm
Derek,
screwed.
if you'd like to spell it out for those listening at home.
Oh, God. I feel like I'm at the... when you're in school and you have to try to spell things?
Yeah.
I would get so nervous when I had to spell it because I would never know how to spell anything. It's MAQUUOKETA.
That's so easy.
I don't even want to pronounce it on here because it's making me nervous. Can you use it in a sentence, Aiden?
No.
Yeah, we went down to the caves last week.
Okay. Nothing is going to help me with this because it's not like I can ask where it is, who's from there. None of that's going to help. It's just going to matter on how I'm going to pronunciate this. Okay. So M-A, so that's I don't even know. Moqueta? Is it Moqueta?
No, it is not.
It's Makokata.
Yep.
Makokata. Okay. Yeah, I would not. I don't know if I could say this, but it almost sounds like a reservation, like in Oklahoma or something. I would have not guessed that. Are there tribes in Iowa? Is that a
Oh
thing?
yeah. Iowa is named after a tribe, the Iowa tribe.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have those down here. I think we put them all in Oklahoma, but yeah, I would have never guessed that. When it comes to like those kind of names, I have no idea.
Makokata. Well,
I
good try.
can do Spanish name towns, Czech, German, but I can't do that. After that, I get lost.
Good try. You did your best. All right, now we've got a draft. I'm excited for this one. It is the best Big 12 quarterbacks since the year 2010. Aiden's going to flip a coin for us, and we're going to go off and running.
Sally Ride, ladies and gentlemen.
Should I ask? I don't even know who that is.
Well, you should.
Is that a quarter?
For the let Jake gets caught in the air.
Tails.
It is heads.
Who?
I don't think I've ever won a coin flip on this. I'm
No, you
always
have.
losing.
You've won one.
I keep winning the polls, though.
Yeah, I know. I've been shitting the bed in the polls. I need to turn that around. I don't know if I'm going to help this week or hurt it. I'm going to let you pick first because I feel like the depth and the quality here of my top couple here, I feel really good about. So I'm going to let you pick first.
Thank you. I really wanted to pick first because I think that there was a pretty clear 1-1 in this draft, and that is Baker Mayfield, Heisman winner, just an absolute dog, massive personality, and if he's not the most fun quarterback to watch since 2010, he is one of the first names that I think of. Led Oklahoma to a couple of college football playoff appearances, and he's just Baker. I love Baker. He is like, when I think of a Big 12 quarterback, I think of Baker Mayfield, and that was an easy first pick for me.
You know that guy who played after him? You know his name?
I do, and he was number 2 on my list. So
Kyler Murray.
Yep. I will say,
best starter for one
best
season.
player that I've ever seen in person.
Starter for 1 year, but I mean an absolute monster season. Over 4,300 yards passing, 42 touchdown passes, rushed for over 1,000 yards, 12 rushing touchdowns in that season. Heisman Trophy winner. If I had to pick one quarterback in the Big 12 in the last 15 years to go win me a football game, it's that man right there. It's Kyler Murray. Again, I agree with you. Best football player I've ever seen. And for what it's worth, best Texas high school football player I have probably ever seen. Ever will see too.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with that pick. It's a dang good pick.
Oh boy, this is where things get interesting here. For me at least. I don't know about you.
Yeah, my top 2 was pretty dead set, but
You can go a bunch of different ways here. I can go with another Heisman winner, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes. I'm taking Mahomes, and I know everybody's going to say about the 66
to 10.
I already knew that was going to happen. But what Patrick Mahomes had to work with was a JV level defense, and he had to do everything himself. He's the only quarterback, look this up, in the top 10 in career Big 12 passing yards and passing touchdowns who didn't play a full 4 years. 93 passing touchdowns and 32 games at Texas Tech. Threw for over 5,000 yards in his last season. Again, he wasn't winning a ton of games because of the team he had around him. There was no better thrower of the football than that man you're looking at right there in the conference. The only reason Tech was ever in games back then in the Cliff Kingsbury era was because of that man right there.
Do you want a job at Fox Sports for all these excuses you're making for Patrick Mahomes? You'd fit right in.
I thought that was ESPN.
No, it's all of them. No, I'm kidding. I had a really hard time ranking Mahomes on this list.
Best throw I've ever seen. Hands down. When it comes to throwing the football, never seen anybody throw off their back foot and launch at 60 yards.
Yeah, he looked pretty good on a cold November day in Ames back in 2016, too.
Everybody has an off day.
No, that was not all on him. His defense was so bad that day. All right, well, I think that pick made my next pick easy because I'm going to take Robert Griffin III, Heisman winner from Baylor, absolute dynamite. I don't claim his opinions after his football career's ended. He is really hard to listen to, I can't lie. But what he did in Waco, that video game number type player, I think RG3 was a pretty easy pick there for me at number 4. And then it gets gets dicey after this. There's a lot of different ways this can go. I'm going to go with Max Duggan. Kind of in the same realm where his career numbers aren't going to be the greatest, but his final year at TCU was so magical. Heisman finalist and led TCU all the way to the national championship game. And you've seen what he's done or what his program has done since he's gone, and that's nothing. Duggan was a dog, and he is someone, if you put the game on the line, just go get us down the field. I'm taking Duggan really, really high up on that list.
I'm going to go Trevon Boykin, TCU here. I don't think his first 2 years were anything to brag about, but you look at what he did when he got that new offense in 2014. Like, he was special. He led TCU to that title in 2014. I did hear through 64 touchdown passes in his final 2 seasons. The ability to escape pressure was outside of Kyler Murray. There's probably nobody better when it came to that, and to run the football as well as he did. He rushed for like almost 30 touchdowns in his college career. I think he was literally a must-watch player every single Saturday. And TCU, and during his era, was like, that was peak TCU. Like, you can make an argument that it was probably, I don't know, if Duggan's comparable maybe to him, but I still think Boykin, I would go Boykin over Duggan in that situation. The next guy I'm going to go with, talked about him before the show, I'm probably going to lean Brandon Weeden here. I think he was one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, especially early on in his career. I think what he was able to do at Oklahoma State, he was really their first great quarterback. I think, I'm going to forget this name, Zach Robinson, I think, was the guy before him. Brandon Weeden took them to a whole nother level in 2010 and 2011. I mean, that's Mike Gundy's only Big 12 championship, in large part to a guy like Brandon Weeden. And that's true. And I was thinking about this. That's probably another guy that Iowa State had a famous win over too. Not just Patrick Mahomes. So,
probably the most famous.
Yeah. So I'm going to go Weeden here. I think he was still a top-notch quarterback in the Big 12. Outside of that game, like, he was so good.
Should I go in the direction of another iconic Iowa State win?
You can.
Because I've got Baker. You've got Brandon Weeden. You've got Mahomes. Should I go with Kenny Hill? No, I'm joking. I would never pick Kenny Hill. Man, this is tough. I'll go Jalen Hurts. Another Heisman finalist. His year at Oklahoma is probably overshadowed because of how special the years of Baker and Kyler were before him. But if Jalen Hurts' single season happens at any other school, he's probably remembered a lot more fondly than he... And I know he already is. I know he's already very popular in Norman. So I think that's pretty good value for Hurts. And then, man, there's a lot of different directions I could go with this last pick. This is hard. I've got my list, but I don't know if I should veer off of it. I'll go with Brock Purdy. Why not? When you talk about his impact to a single school, his record of 17-1 at home against Big 12 opponents over his 4 years starting, it's just unprecedented compared to any other quarterback that far north in the Big 12's history. I don't think his stats are maybe going to match what happened in those early 2010 offensive explosions. And honestly, like I thought about maybe going Bryce Petty or a couple other quarterbacks from that era. I just think those numbers were so inflated because of the style of offense and defense that was played at the time. I think what Purdy did over a 4-year span gives him the slight nod over Petty for me.
Not a bad pick. I did have Purdy in my top 10 here. I think you can make an argument for him around there, so I don't mind that pick there. I mean, plus it's your pick. It's not mine. I'm going to stick with the Oklahoma State theme. I'm going to go Mason Rudolph, Oklahoma State. To me, again, maybe I felt like he got overshadowed a whole lot by your first pick in Baker Mayfield. But if you really look at it, this is a guy that's top 5 career passing yards in the Big 12, top 10 in passing touchdowns. And then, of course, he won I don't think people understood how many games he won at Oklahoma State. Every year he was a starter in Stillwater, they won 10 games, at least 10 games every single year when he was the starting quarterback. I think when you combine his record there as a starter and in the stats, I think you could make a case for him maybe being in that top 5 or 6 quarterback in the last 15 years.
Man, this might be our best list of honorable mentions yet.
Pretty
because good. Alone on my list, I've got Bryce Petty, who had 4,000 yards 2 different times at Baylor. Colin Klein, we all know what he did at Kansas State. And Geno Smith, who was really dang good when West Virginia entered the Big 12. I'm sure you had a couple other honorable mentions that didn't make it either.
Yeah, I had Klein, Purdy. Hertz was on my list too. I also had Will Grier. West Virginia.
Grier probably would have been in my top 15.
If you go back and look at his seasons, I have here 71 touchdowns and over 7,300 passing yards in 2 seasons at West Virginia. Like, he put that team, I mean, they did have a good defense in 2018. That was pretty good, but he came up just fine, a little short in that one game against Oklahoma that year, but he was very close to getting West Virginia into a Big 12 title game.
I probably reached on Duggan, but
yeah,
whatever.
Duggan wasn't even my top 10.
Really?
No.
He's a Heisman finalist.
I viewed Max Duggan like I view kind of the Colin Klein thing. Excellent runner of the football, a great runner. Instincts were phenomenal. Am I going to want to lean on Max Duggan's arm in crunch time? You leaned with his legs. You didn't lean with his arm.
Yeah.
For a quarterback, I think you got to have a little bit of both. That's why I didn't pick Colin Klein.
That's fair. All right. Well, I think that does it for this week's show.
It's probably our shortest show ever.
It almost wasn't because you took 10 minutes to find out how to pronounce Makokata.
That was fair. I needed that 10 minutes.
Makita? Is that what you said?
I don't even remember what I said. You could put it in front of me again. I wouldn't say it the same.
Makokata. The pride of Bo Bowman, colleague of mine, in his fantasy football or fantasy baseball league.
Well, if he listens to this, I just butchered his town's name.
Oh, he didn't make it this far. After he heard you say Makita, he's out of here.
That's what I said, yeah.
All right. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Bigger Than 12 on Iowa Everywhere. We will be back next week. We hope you are too. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend.